Angels are your powerful and militant ministers. The Son of God cautioned against despising one of his little ones, whether children or any who belong to the kingdom. Matthew chapter 18 verse 10 states, "See that you do not look down on one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven." To highlight their significance, he added that their angels are frequently in the presence of God, beholding his face. Angels here probably means guardian angels. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 14. Are not all the angels ministering spirits sent out by God to serve, accompany, protect those who will inherit salvation? Of course they are. In this context, these little ones could apply to those who believe in him or refer to the little children. This is the crucial passage concerning guardian angels. There is no doubt that good angels help protect. God sent his angel to protect Daniel. Daniel chapter 6 verses 20 to 23. When he had come near the den, he called out to Daniel with a troubled voice. The king said to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you constantly serve been able to rescue you from the lions?" Then Daniel spoke to the king, "O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and has shut the mouths of the lions so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him and also before you, O king. I have committed no crime." Then the king was greatly pleased and ordered that Daniel be taken out of the den. So Daniel was taken out of the den, and no injury whatever was found on him, because he believed in and relied on and trusted in his God. In this chapter, one of the best known in the Bible, Daniel lives under Persian rule. He was promoted by Darius the king to become one of 3 governors to be over the 120 satraps. Due to the excellent spirit in Daniel, Darius gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. Officials who were envious of Daniel and knew they would never be able to convict him of any genuine crime convinced the king to create legislation that forbade praying to anyone other than Darius for 30 days. The decree also made it illegal for Daniel to pray to anyone else. Once the decree was enacted into law, it was no longer possible to alter it. King Darius signed the written decree, but Daniel continued to pray to God 3 times daily, and his enemies quickly reported him to the king. Darius worked until sunset to try to liberate Daniel, but the edict could not be changed, and he was so obliged to have Daniel thrown into the den of lions because of this. Despite this, the pagan king gave Daniel encouragement, telling him that the God Daniel worshipped constantly will save him in the end. Darius skipped his regular evening activities in favor of abstaining from food and going to bed early. The anxious king woke up very early in the morning and rushed quickly to the den and discovered the Jewish prophet who had been there uninjured by the lions. In typical fashion, the devout prophet gave the Lord the glory. "My God has sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths so that they have not hurt me." Daniel experienced the protection of God. Angels were also sent to protect the prophet Elisha and his servant. Let us set the scene. Ancient Aram, now Syria, was at war with Israel, and the king of Aram was troubled that the prophet Elisha was able to predict where his army intended to go, warning Israel's king so that he could develop Israel's army's strategy. The king of Aram decided to send a massive army of soldiers to the city of Dothan to capture God's prophet Elisha so that he wouldn't be able to help Israel win the war. Even the most basic of plans could only be hatched by the ruler in his tent if Elisha first relayed them to the king of Israel in great detail, so that the king of Israel could take the necessary defensive actions. Nothing can be kept secret from God. He was aware of every move that Israel's adversaries made. Even though Israel's adversaries may have been hatching sinister plans to destroy them, God preserved them. The king of Israel made the right choice when he decided to pay attention to the prophet of Yahweh. When Elisha notified Israel's king of the activities of the Aramean king, it not only revealed Yahweh's strength on his behalf, but also demonstrated to the Aramean ruler that Yahweh was Israel's protector. Elisha was given a great deal of information regarding the plans of Israel's adversaries by the Lord, which caused the king of Aram to become so enraged that in verse 11 he accused his servants of hiding an Israeli spy. And after learning that Elisha, the prophet in Israel, was the cause of his problems, the king of Israel dispatched horsemen, chariots, and a large army to catch Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 5 verses 8 to 10. Now when Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent word to the king asking, "Why have you torn your clothes? Just let Naaman come to me, and he shall know that there is a true prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots, and stopped at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored to you, and you will be clean." When Elisha's servant saw the horde of enemy forces encircling their city, he cried out, "Oh, my master, what are we to do?" But Elisha was unconcerned. He saw with faith-filled eyes and declared, "Those who are with us outnumber those who are with them." His assurance here is reminiscent of the Apostle John's exhortation to believers. "The one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world." 1 John chapter 4 verse 4. When we align with God, our adversary is always outnumbered. And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 17. When God's servants are doing His will and doing His work, they are invincible until the task is completed. 2 Kings chapter 6 verses 17 to 19. Then Elisha prayed and said, "Lord, please, open his eyes that he may see." And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding Elisha. When the Arameans came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, "Please strike this people, nation, with blindness." And God struck them with blindness, in accordance with Elisha's request. Then Elisha said to the Arameans, "This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man whom you are seeking." And he led them to Samaria. Elisha's prayer was answered by the Lord, and his servant saw God's army. Elisha was surrounded by horses and chariots of fire. It was a wall of divine protection. A few centuries after God opened the eyes of Elisha's servant, the Apostle Paul wrote that we should get ourselves ready with God's protection, so that we won't be caught off guard. God also sent His angels to Hagar. Hagar was an Egyptian girl who was enslaved to Abraham's wife Sarah. After God had appeared to Abram and promised him a homeland and a heritage, 10 years passed, and he and Sarah still had no newborn. In her impatience, Sarah took issues into her own hands and gave her housemaid to her husband, saying, "Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." So Abram did as she said, and Hagar became pregnant. Even though this adulterous position was of her own doing, Sarah became envious when the younger fertile girl began to flaunt her expanding waistline. Later, Hagar bore a son to Abram and named him Ishmael. When Abraham and Sarah's son Isaac was born, 14 years had passed since the beginning of Hagar's narrative. Ishmael began to tease Isaac not long after he was weaned, and Sarah reported the incident to Abraham. She said, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Genesis chapter 21, verse 10. Although it grieved Abraham to do so, he gave Hagar and Ishmael some provisions and sent them away. And Ishmael and his mother wandered in the desert. Verse 14. Hagar was at a loss for what to do when her supply of both food and water ran out. She hid Ishmael in the shadow of a bush so that he would be cool, and then she moved a few steps away so that she would not have to see him pass away. The Lord spoke words of consolation to Hagar as she cried, and he called her from heaven. Genesis chapter 21, verses 17 to 20. God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy from where he is resting. Get up, help the boy up, and hold him by the hand, for I will make him a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the empty skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with Ishmael, and he grew and developed, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert archer. Elijah also experienced protection through angels. After the showdown on Mount Carmel, Jezebel was livid. She sent Elijah a message in which she vowed that he would either die or she would. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 and 2. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." Elijah was so terrified by her warning that he raced an ultra-marathon, which is equivalent to 100 miles, in order to get away. Unfortunately, he was unable to conquer his fear and go on. The child of God is in the center of God's will, regardless of where that may be, and this is the safest place on earth for them to be. He came to the wilderness and sat under a tree, hoping to pass. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 5 to 7. He lay down and slept under the juniper tree, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and by his head there was a bread cake baked on hot coal, and a pitcher of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too long for you without adequate sustenance." In addition, we are given information about the angel that watches over the children of God in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. Now at that end time, Michael, the great angelic prince who stands guard over the children of your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress, such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. But at that time, your people, everyone who is found written in the book of life, will be rescued. To return to Matthew chapter 18, verse 10, the word "there" is a collective pronoun in Greek and refers to the fact that angels in general serve believers. These angels are pictured as always watching the face of God, to hear His command to them to help a believer when it is needed. The angels in this passage do not seem to guard a person so much as being attentive to the Father in heaven. Therefore, the act of duty or oversight appears to come more from God than it does from the angels, which makes complete sense, given that God is the only being capable of possessing omniscience. He is aware of each and every believer at all times, and He alone knows which of us is in need of protection at any given time. Because they are continually seeing His face, the angels are at His disposal to help one of His little ones. Matthew chapter 18, verse 10. See that you do not despise or think less of one of these little ones. For I say to you, that their angels in heaven are in the presence of, and continually look upon the face of my Father who is in heaven. It cannot be emphatically answered from Scripture whether or not each believer has a personal guardian angel assigned to them. But as stated earlier, God does use angels in ministering to us. It is scriptural to say that He uses them as He uses us. That is, He in no way needs them or us to accomplish His purposes, but chooses to use them and us nevertheless. In the end, regardless of whether or not we have a guardian angel assigned to us, we have an even greater assurance from God. If we are His children through faith in Christ, then He works all things together for good, and Jesus Christ will never leave us or forsake us. If we are accompanied by an all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving God, does it really make a difference whether or not we have a limited guardian angel looking out for us? Romans chapter 8, verses 28 to 30. And we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, causes all things to work together as a plan for good for those who love God, to those who are called according to His plan and purpose. For those whom He foreknew and loved and chose beforehand, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son, and ultimately share in His complete sanctification, so that He would be the firstborn, the most beloved and honored among many believers. And those whom He predestined, He also called. And those whom He called, He also justified, declared free of the guilt of sin. And those whom He justified, He also glorified, raising them to a heavenly dignity. Hebrews chapter 13, verses 5 and 6. Let your character, your moral essence, your inner nature, be free from the love of money. Shun greed. Be financially ethical, being content with what you have. For He has said, I will never under any circumstances desert you, nor give you up, nor leave you without support. Nor will I in any degree leave you helpless, nor will I forsake or let you down or relax my hold on you. Assuredly not. So we take comfort and are encouraged and confidently say, The Lord is my helper. In time of need I will not be afraid. What will man do to me? The psalmist said, The God of Jacob defend thee, send thee help from His sanctuary, and remember all thy offerings. Some trust in horses, others in chariots, but God will be a defense for those who walk in the covenant. When others fall, they will be standing upright, because God is their defense. David kept the angels so occupied that he never lost any battle all through his days. David often pursued his enemies with angels. Psalm chapter 35, verses 5 to 7 says, Let them be as chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 and 12. For he will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. Angels are motivated by an inexhaustible love for God, and are jealous to see God's will in Jesus Christ fulfilled in us. David says of angels, "He who dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone." Psalm chapter 91, verse 1 and 11 to 12.